This is Business Weekend with Ross Greenwood.
Hi there and welcome to Business Weekend. I'm Ross Greenwood. It is great to have your company. Coming up on the program today, in the wake of the attack on Israel by Hamas and its retaliation on the Gaza Strip, we head to Jerusalem and speak with one of the pioneers of Israel's tech sector. Jon Medved is described as one of the fathers of Israel as the startup nation.
We're in a fight for our survival, but it's a fight which we will win because we have no choice.
Now, the images of Hamas fighters storming into Israel and killing or kidnapping innocent civilians chilled the blood of anybody watching that this week. And Israel's response, heavy bombardments of Gaza, raises deep concerns of a significant war in the Middle East. Yet surprisingly, after an initial jump in oil prices, markets this week, even in Israel, were unusually settled. But why? Jon Medved is the CEO of OurCrowd, a leading equity crowdfunding platform based in Israel. He's been called one of the fathers of Israel's reputation as the startup nation. I spoke this week with Jon Medved from his base in Jerusalem and just asked him about the community's sense of security right now.
Look, it's been a difficult week. This has not been an easy week for Israel. It's been a tragic, horrific week, perhaps the worst day since the Holocaust for the Jewish people. Losing 1,300 people in one day, to give you a sense of what that means relative to our population, imagine if the U.S. had not lost 2,000 people on 9/11, but if they had lost 50,000, because the U.S. is 35 times our population. Imagine if Australia lost 5,000 people in a day to a terror attack. But this wasn't terror. This was barbarism of the most unbelievable kind, burning children alive in their own homes and slitting their throats, cutting their heads off, taking hostages of babies and 85-year-old Holocaust survivors, killing 300 people who came to a music festival which was celebrating peace, going through those who were butchered in an open field and then putting a bullet in their head. This was not a normal event. So it's freaked us out. It's made us angry. And when Israel is angry, you don't want to be our enemy. And what the country is now convinced is the only policy is to make sure that the day after this war, there is no Hamas, which can threaten and can slaughter Jews the way that Nazis did. These guys are ISIS. And with ISIS, you don't negotiate, you don't talk, you destroy them.
So, Jon, can you just explain the concern of many around the world right now that others, Hezbollah, might come into this? Iran clearly is a player. The great concern, of course, is that if it escalates, and that causes an unthinkable situation for the world.
Look, we live in a tough neighborhood. Our worst enemy isn't the New Zealanders, the Kiwis. Okay, in other words, we don't have the luxury of living in a gentle part of the world. So yes, we have Hezbollah on our northern border, and we have Iran just over the horizon, but we can deal with this. We're a strong country. We've just mobilized 360,000 reservists. We have an incredible army. We have a resilient people. You would not believe the spirit of Israel. There are thousands and thousands of Israeli young people who are now coming back from all over the world, where they backpack and celebrate their post-army freedom. And they're now coming back, cutting their annual tours over, but they're coming back to fight and defend the country. There are people on the streets handing the guys in tanks food as they go by, getting ready for battle. The country is fired up. We are super, super committed and unified. And that's really all that matters to us. We don't worry so much about Hezbollah or worry about the Iranians. We can handle them, especially now that the world, the sane world, has provided incredible support. I mean, we noticed, for example, what you guys down in Oz did last night in terms of lighting up in Melbourne and lighting up the Opera House in Sydney. These were not lost on us. But it happened also at the Eiffel Tower, and happened at 10 Downing Street, and happened at the Bundestag, it happened in Kyiv, and it happened at the White House. And if you listen to Joe Biden's speech, where he called what happened to us, pure, unadulterated evil, this is one of those rare cases where you have good and you have evil. People who desire and want to live and create. We're the startup nation. We're creating technologies that will save the world in terms of climate and cybersecurity and food security. And what they seem to be expert at is slaughter, is ISIS-like jihad, where their only purpose is to kill us. So we are in a fight for our survival, but it's a fight which we will win because we have no choice. Jews have nowhere else to go. We are going to prevail here. And, I would just urge that Hezbollah take a look at the 2 U.S. aircraft carriers that are sitting in the Mediterranean now.
So you mentioned there that Israel is the startup nation, and you're considered to be one of the fathers of that startup nation through the venture capital you've raised to fund entrepreneurialism there. So just explain what you think right now is the appetite for these types of investments in the wake of what's just taken place.
Well, first of all, this isn't our first rodeo, to use an American expression. We've been through crises, we've been through wars, and every time we do this, we come out on the other end ahead. And if you look, if you plot the 5 different wars that we fought with Hamas, since we completely withdrew from the Gaza Strip and gave it back to them and said, okay, let's try to live peacefully, that didn't work out so well. But if you look at each of those 5 events, turns out the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange was up several months later by 20, 30, 40%. So it was a buy signal. Now, I'm not going to tell you what to do with your money and when to invest and when not. We find great investments at OurCrowd. We make them, we lead them, we let people make up their own mind. But the reality here is that Israel is the startup nation, very strong at deep technology, in particular with artificial intelligence, with cybersecurity, with inventing new sources of protein, new energy. And in my opinion, when you look not a couple of months down the road, but you look a couple of years down the road, this kind of technology is going to be more and more in demand, and there will be more money coming into Israel, and more importantly, more money being made in Israel.
Now, again, you mentioned there the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange. I've been watching that in this past week, and I've been surprised, to be honest, in the reaction to these attacks by Hamas over the weekend. It's been relatively muted. Even the oil price in what's clearly a more dangerous Middle East has again been fairly quiet. Does this surprise you?
No, not at all. In fact, what happens usually is there's some kind of an initial drop, and the first day the drop was like 7%, which is a pretty significant drop. And then it levels off. And then over time, as we reestablish stability, as we reestablish the fact that we are not going anywhere, that we're going to win, then the money will come in. Because remember, investing in startups, while it takes a certain amount of discipline and a certain amount of smarts and hard work, it's really about buying low and selling high. And so at this point, things are really well priced in the startup world. There's been a worldwide sort of drop in investment. Valuations have come down. We're seeing smart money moving into the venture capital sector. They're doing it through OurCrowd. They're doing it, in other directions as well. You got a great fund out there in Australia called SquarePeg. I want to give them a shout out, who do wonderful work, and their investments in Israel as well as in Oz. And Oz, by the way, has been what an incredible place to be investing dollars over the last couple of years in startups. You guys have come out of nowhere to really, grab an interesting place in the overall startup environment. But Israel is a super long-term investment bet. It is an incredible country, an incredible technology center, great people, and the one thing we are is resilient. You can punch us, you can hurt us, but you can't stop us. And if you watch Israel over the next several months and years, you'll be very proud of us.
Jon Medved, very good to talk to you today. I know these are tough times for you and for your nation, but I very much appreciate it.
Thank you.